With the 23rd overall pick in the 1997 NBA draft, the Seattle Supersonics selected 6'1" point guard Bobby Jackson. He was coming off a senior year at Minnesota where he averaged 15 points a game. Now, Jackson would never actually play a game for the Supersonics, but he still went on to put together a really solid career. He's most known for his time in Sacramento that included a Sixth Man of the Year trophy in 2003. Now, you're probably wondering, why are we talking about Bobby Jackson? What in the world does this have to do with this current Thunder team? Well, he's actually the beginning of a web of trades that's gone on for over 20 years. On the same night the Supersonics selected Jackson, they traded him. They reached an agreement with the Denver Nuggets to send his draft rights in exchange for the rights to the 32nd pick in the draft, Long Beach State guard James Cotton. In addition, they also received a second-round pick in the 98 draft. Now, James Cotton never amounted to much at the NBA level. He played in a total of just 19 games. That other second-round pick, however, worked out extremely well. It became the 32nd pick in 98, which Seattle used to select Rashard Lewis, a 6'10" forward coming right out of high school. While his rookie season really wasn't much of an indication, as he played in just 20 games and averaged 2 points, Lewis quickly proved that letting him fall that far in the draft was a mistake. He went up to 8 points per game in his second season, 15 by his third. By 2005, he was now playing alongside Ray Allen, and the team was quickly rising up the Western Conference. They finished as the 4th seed, and Lewis made his first All-Star appearance, averaging 21 points. They were bounced out in the second round, but despite that exit, it appeared that there was a really bright future in Seattle. Unfortunately, though, that wasn't the case. The team finished as the 11th seed in 2006 and the 14th seed in 2007. Now, luckily, their losing efforts that season were rewarded with a top pick in the draft, which they used to select a skinny 6'9" forward coming out of Texas, Kevin Durant. The first selection for recently hired general manager Sam Presti, who, despite not even being on the job for a full month at that time, got aggressive quickly. Influenced by Rashard Lewis's likely departure in free agency, he would trade Ray Allen to the Boston Celtics. Then, as expected, Lewis left in free agency, signing with the Orlando Magic. But that's not where the web of trades ends. It ended up actually being a sign-in trade that returned Seattle a future second-rounder as well as a $9 million trade exception, something they used just 9 days later to take on the contract of Kurt Thomas from the Phoenix Suns. To do so, they received first-round picks in 2008 and 2010. On draft night of 2008, the Thunder selected UCLA guard Russell Westbrook early with their personal selection. The selection from Phoenix ended up being the 24th pick, which they used to select 6'11" forward Serge Ibaka. Both of these selections were massive hits for Presti and the Thunder. At the time, Kevin Durant was already looking like a superstar, and now alongside Westbrook, Ibaka. Then just a year later, James Harden, the 3rd overall pick in 2009, OKC had one of the most exciting young cores in the league. A core they built in just a few years after hitting the reset button. By 2010, they were back in the playoffs. By 2012, they had become contenders, making it all the way to the finals. Now, unfortunately, that summer, they would also make the infamous decision to trade James Harden to the Houston Rockets after some failed contract negotiations. A decision that left everyone scratching their head, but really didn't change the Thunder's place as contenders. They won 60 games in 2013, but unfortunately, their championship hopes were crushed in the playoffs after Westbrook suffered a torn meniscus in the first round. With Westbrook back in 2014, they made it all the way to the conference finals before falling to the Spurs. In 2015, their hopes were once again crushed. This time it was Kevin Durant who played just 27 games with various foot and ankle injuries. They were able to get back to full strength for the 2016 season and made it all the way to the conference finals, where they matched up with the 73-9 Golden State Warriors. They would take a 3-1 lead, but they would end up giving that up and once again fell short. Today's video is sponsored by Raycon. You guys have probably heard about Raycon, the company with the everyday earbuds that have the audio quality you expect from the big guys, but at half the price. I had a pair of their previous earbuds and was a huge fan, which is why I was so excited when Raycon reached out and sent me over a pair of their new, upgraded model. It's everything we loved about Raycons, but now with some added game-changing features, including active noise cancellation, a feature that's had me locked in during the NBA playoffs. There's nothing like cutting out all the noise and distractions around you and then hearing Chet and SGA belt out what a pro wants, what a pro needs for the 10th time in a night. The upgraded earbuds also have a new quick charge function. They also have multi-point connectivity, meaning you can connect 2 devices at once. They're also now sweat resistant, making them perfect for bringing to the gym. Personally, I've always struggled finding earbuds that fit and stay in my ears, but because of their design and all the different sizing options they have for their gel tips, That's no longer an issue for me. So if you guys haven't pulled the trigger on a pair of Raycons, or even if you have but want access to all these new features on their upgraded model, if you click the link in the description box or go to buyraycon.com/Jimmer, you're gonna get 20% off your Raycon purchase plus free shipping. On top of that, they also come with a 30-day happiness guarantee, so honestly, why wait? Thank you Raycon for sponsoring. The 2016 offseason began with OKC making a massive move on draft night. Continuing that web of trades, they sent Serge Ibaka to the Orlando Magic in exchange for Victor Oladipo, Ersan Ilyasova, and the draft rights to the 11th overall pick, Domantas Sabonis. An exciting trade at the time, but the excitement in OKC was short-lived. Just weeks later, Kevin Durant decided to leave OKC in free agency and join the Warriors, the team that just sent him packing in the playoffs. This came as a shock to the Thunder, and it left them scrambling to find another all-star talent to put alongside Westbrook. Now that didn't happen immediately. The 2017 season was just the Westbrook show. He took home MVP, averaging a 32-point triple-double. The following summer, however, that trade web would continue. The Thunder sent pretty much the exact package they received for Ibaka a year ago, Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis, in exchange for Pacers all-star wing Paul George. A trade that even at the time appeared to be a home run. But it is important to remember that at the time, this was looked at as nothing but a one-year rental. Paul George had made his intentions of going back to Southern California very clear. That's why we saw that kind of price tag. A price tag that wouldn't have been worth it if it was just for the following season. They finished as the 4th seed in the West before falling to a rookie-led Utah Jazz team in the first round. It was a massively disappointing end that was expected to segue into an equally disappointing offseason. But that's not what happened. Paul George would shock the NBA world by deciding to re-sign in OKC on a 4-year, $137 million deal. By the start of the 2019 season, the expectations for the Thunder had come down quite a bit, but somehow they once again fell short of them. They finished as only the 6th seed and lost to the Blazers in the first round.
Lillard, long-range three, and it's good! At the buzzer! Damian Lillard! Are you kidding me?
At that time, it was hard to see a path back on track for the Thunder, but entering that offseason, it didn't appear that a full rebuild was imminent. However, that changed quickly. Kawhi Leonard made the decision to leave the Toronto Raptors after just 1 season and an NBA title to join the Los Angeles Clippers. But before he signed, he did have one request: get me Paul George. A request that left the Clippers with just one option: call up Sam Presti and make an offer he just couldn't refuse. And that's exactly what they did. Presti had no intentions of trading Paul George that summer, but he just couldn't pass on the package of 5 first-round picks, 2 first-round pick swaps, Danilo Gallinari, and finally, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the Clippers' lottery selection from the year prior. Someone who, flash forward to today, is now the face of this Thunder team, fresh off being named the runner-up for MVP. So yes, Bobby Jackson, over the course of over 20 years and several trades, turned into Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And even more, including other pieces of this current Thunder rotation. The first selection from that PG trade was Miami's 18th overall pick in the 2021 draft, which the Thunder used to select Trey Mann. The second of those 5 first-round picks would come in the 2022 draft, a draft that their personal selection was at number 2, which they used to select Gonzaga 7-footer Chet Holmgren, a prospect with remarkable coordination and skill for his size that had just wrapped up one of the most polished freshman seasons we've ever seen. He averaged 14 points and 10 rebounds, shooting with absurd efficiency across the board, 61% from the field and 39% beyond the arc. On top of that, he was one of the top rim protectors in the country, sending back 3.7 shots a game. Shortly after that selection, they would make a deal with the New York Knicks to acquire the 11th overall pick. An interesting decision at the time, as they already had the 12th overall selection via the Clippers in that Paul George trade. At 11, they would select French forward coming out of the NBL Ousmane Dieng, a selection that so far hasn't amounted to much. But with the very next selection, that 12th pick, a part of this trade web, they would select Santa Clara point forward Jalen Williams. Williams was coming off a dominant junior season where he had averaged 18 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, shooting an absurd 51% from the field, 40% from 3, and 81% from the line. Production that was just too good to ignore, and we started to see him quickly climb up the draft board. But it really wasn't until the combine that we really started to see him talked about as a possible lottery selection. Scouts expected impressive measurables, but not this impressive. He measured in with an over 7'2" wingspan. He also pulled off the second highest standing vertical leap and the fourth highest max vertical leap. On paper, his prospect profile was nothing short of elite. There really just seemed to be one question: how much is there really to take away from the production of a multi-year college player from a small program? A question that Sam Presti was more than willing to find out the answer to, with this already being his third selection of the night. So far, that's where we're at in this trade web. Bobby Jackson has become Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Jalen Williams, one of the most promising young duos in the league. But it's still not over yet. There's still plenty left in that haul for Paul George. Originally, the Thunder received a 2024 unprotected first from the Clippers, but recently at the deadline, OKC actually traded that to Dallas, who sent it to Washington in order to get Daniel Gafford. In return, OKC got the right to swap with Dallas in 2028. The other pieces left from that trade are a Heat 2025 lottery protected first, which if it isn't conveyed, would be unprotected in 2026. They also have the right to swap with LA in 2025, and will have the Clippers first unprotected in 2026. Insane. The trade is clearly the foundation of this current Thunder team. But while those two, and also the mentioned selection of Chet Holmgren, are getting a lot of the hype, getting a lot of the attention for this Thunder team right now, it's really their depth that's allowed them to beat their expectations so quickly. By the time the second round of that 2022 draft rolled around, despite OKC having already made 3 selections on the night, they weren't done yet. They had already taken one Jalen Williams earlier, and they decided to run that back. With the 34th overall pick, they selected Arkansas power forward Jalen Williams, someone that checked all the boxes when looking for value in this range of the draft. He was 6'10" with an over 7-foot wingspan, coming off a sophomore season where he started to show a ton of improvement, both as a playmaker out of the front court and as a floor spacer. He had averaged 11 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 assists. Now let's go back further in the timeline of this OKC team. We're following the conclusion of the 2019 draft. Sam Presti and the Thunder were surprised to see that 6'4" freshman Arizona State guard Lu Dort had gone undrafted. He was a physical, two-way player coming off a season where he had averaged 16 points and nearly 2 steals. Coming into that draft, he was often mocked as a late first-round selection, but at the very least, an early second-round pick. CBS had him going 30 in their final mock, Sports Illustrated 32, The Athletic 36. So what happened? Arizona State head coach Bobby Hurley was asked about the fall and said, "There were teams that he worked out with that I know were very interested in him. Teams that were in that wheelhouse of draft picks. They chose to go in a different direction for whatever reason. Was there a health issue? It's nothing physical. A character issue. I haven't seen a character flaw. I think it was maybe just an organizational decision to go with one guy over another. That's all I can come up with." Now, as time has gone on, we have gotten some more information. Dort's agent would later clarify that as he began to fall in the draft, they actually had 4 teams that reached out and wanted to select him. But because they either wanted to draft and stash him overseas or send him directly to the G League, something Dort had no interest in, they turned down those offers, as by this range in the draft, he already knew where he was headed. It was towards the end of the draft when Sam called me. There was really no hesitation. I was here in Oklahoma City the very next day. He would end up signing a 2-way deal that quickly turned into a 4-year, $5.4 million contract. After 2 seasons at the University of Arkansas, it had become pretty clear. 6'4" wing Isaiah Joe was one of the top sharpshooters in the country. Over those 2 seasons, he had averaged 15 points, shooting 38% from 3 while taking over 9 attempts a game. This put him on the map for the NBA. But entering the pre-draft process, there were some concerns as he was coming off a knee procedure that cut his season short. It was unclear whether he would declare, and after testing the waters, he actually announced that he was going to return for his junior season, a decision he would go back on just weeks later. He would go to the draft and was selected by the Philadelphia 76ers with the 49th pick in the second round. Over his first 2 years in Philly, he had a pretty solid role with the team. He played in 96 games, averaged 10 minutes and 4 points, scoring pretty much exclusively beyond the perimeter. Going into the 2022 season, however, he was waived by the Sixers. Luckily though, he wouldn't have to wait too long for his next opportunity. Only days later, OKC signed him to a 3-year deal worth just shy of $6 million. He's a guy that our scouts and our people have liked for some time. He obviously has an elite skill, and he's also on the timeline of this team. The conviction from this organization was very clear. It's not often you see a player that just got waived signing a multi-year contract. Going into the 2021 draft, it was unclear what direction exactly OKC would go with their 6th overall pick. The most common players mocked there, however, was whoever was on the board between Scottie Barnes and Jonathan Kuminga. So when Barnes went to the Raptors at 4, Kuminga appeared to be the favorite. If they were to go elsewhere, it seemed it would be UConn sophomore guard James Bouknight, as the two had been heavily connected throughout the entire draft process. They didn't end up selecting either of those prospects. Instead, they made one of the more surprising selections of the night, taking Australian oversized point guard Josh Giddey, a prospect being looked at as the best facilitator in this class and was coming off a season in the NBL where he'd averaged 11 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. Now looking back at that selection, it clearly hasn't been the home run Presti was hoping for, but it is a selection that really embodies their modern draft strategy that as a whole has worked out really well. Presti stated at the time, because of his size at 6'9", he plays all over the place, but at every position he plays, he's making others better and just helping you play good basketball. At the tail end of the 2021 draft, the Thunder had the 55th pick in the 2nd round, a selection that originally belonged to the Nuggets, but was sent to the Sixers, then to the Warriors, and eventually to the Thunder as a small piece of a deal that sent Kelly Oubre to Golden State. With that 55th pick, the Thunder would take a chance on 6'6" wing Maryland Jr. Aaron Wiggins. Wiggins was coming off a season where he showed off his ability as a two-way wing while averaging 15 points, 6 rebounds, and 3 assists. In today's league, it's not often you're going to see a player with that kind of size, physical profile, and production still on the board in that range of the draft. It was an opportunity that Sam Presti had to jump on. Throughout the pre-draft process in 2023, mocks were all over the place when it came to the Thunder selection at 12. Some of the more commonly mocked players included Derek Lively, Grady Dick, and Taylor Hendricks, but no one was really sticking out as the favorite. In-house, however, the Thunder knew exactly who they wanted, so much so they didn't want to risk being sniped and made a deal with the Dallas Mavericks. They would take on the terrible contract of Davis Bertans, and in exchange went up 2 spots where they selected Cason Wallace, a fairly surprising selection at the time. It's not that it was a reach. Wallace was expected to come off the board in this range. Most just didn't expect a 6'3" point guard to be the route that OKC took. Wallace was coming off a freshman season at Kentucky, where he'd averaged 12 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds, shooting 45% from the field and 35% from 3. However, most of the interest from scouts actually came on the defensive end, where he'd emerge as one, if not the top perimeter defender in this class. Now, it is pretty likely that Wallace still would have been on the board at 12. Lively seemed to be Dallas's guy, and the Magic had already taken a point guard earlier in the draft. But as we've seen, the Thunder are aggressive when they have high conviction in a prospect, and this is just another example of that. Our philosophy has always been, try and get as high as you can, and it's really hard to do that. But with the way things shook out, it worked out great for us. We were able to accomplish our goals, which was obviously moving up to get Wallace, and they were able to accomplish goals for their team. So that right there is the rotation we're seeing in the playoffs right now on a nightly basis. The only other players we're seeing even sprinkled in at times are Gordon Hayward and Kenrich Williams. Hayward's a recent addition as they acquired him at the trade deadline from the Charlotte Hornets in exchange for Trey Mann, Micic, Davis Bertans, and 2 future second rounders. Kendrick Williams also came to OKC in a trade, but one that happened back in 2020. His career began going undrafted in 2018 and then signing with the New Orleans Pelicans. He would come to OKC as a small part of a much bigger deal that most notably sent Drew Holiday to the Bucks, and then guys like Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe to the Pelicans. There it is, the OKC's current rotation. Now sure, there was some luck throughout the construction of this group. Retaining Paul George really sticks out when it comes to that, but seeing the level of consistency from Sam Presti across almost 20 years at this point, it might be safe to say that no one in the league right now is better at taking advantage of that luck. His drafting record from Kevin Durant till today is nearly flawless. His ability to consistently come out of top on trades while still doing them at a high rate is just pure talent. And most importantly, his ability to find diamonds in the rough that he knows Mark Dagnall can take advantage of is game-changing. OKC somehow still has a first-round pick this season, 2 next, 2 the next, 2 the next, a swap with Dallas in 2028, and 2 in 2029. At this point, it really might take severe financial constraints or just complete sabotage to stop OKC from being the league's next dynasty.